Hey everybody, what's up and welcome to my weekly news recap. So I do this video every week for those of you who may have missed some of the Guns N' Roses news that came up this week. So without further ado, let's look at this past week's news. So Slash and Duff both attended a Bruce Springsteen concert in Australia this week. This is an actual photo that I guess a fan took of the two in the audience. And then we got this tweet from Bernard Zool. I'm not familiar with who he is. I think he's a writer for some Australian online site. They had done a review of one of Guns N' Roses' shows in Australia, and they apparently had their access cut by management to another show that was going on because they wrote a pretty negative review of the band. Like they have, here's the article that they actually wrote. They talked about Axl's Waistline. They talked about the shit songs of Chinese Democracy. That's not me saying they're shit songs. That's how they wrote. They said that Axl basically forced Slash to play what they refer to as shit songs from Chinese Democracy, and basically said their show was not that good. I've linked the article down below if you guys want to read it. I don't agree with the review, at least from any footage I've seen. Now, it was Axl Rose's 55th birthday this past Monday. He turned 55, and he shares a birthday with some other celebrities, including Tom Brokaw, who used to be an anchor on NBC News. I think he still drops in every now and then. And then he also got some messages of support from his actual entourage as well and bandmates. Let's take a look at that. Steven Adler wished Axl a happy birthday. He said, "Happy birthday, my brother Axl Rose. It was great rocking with you last year. Love you. Hashtag Guns N' Roses." And, you know, some people are still wondering, are we going to see Stevie as part of this year's tour? It's hard to say. You know, he gave that interview on Reddit where he said that the reunion shows he was a part of wasn't exactly what he was expecting, and him and Izzy still want to be involved in some way, but I don't know if that's him saying that has kind of hurt their relationship. I hope it hasn't. And then we also got some birthday wishes from Duff and his wife Susan as well. Now, Duff wrote, "Happy birthday, Axl Rose, perhaps the best standing joke teller of our modern times and all-around badass." So, and then this is Susan McKagan. This is Duff's wife's post on Instagram. I've linked to it down below. She put a little montage together of a different number of photos featuring Duff and Axl together. And then we also had a happy birthday tweet from Del James as well. I haven't seen this photo of Axl before, but he was just thanking him for his friendship of 31 years. And then if you guys watched Jimmy Fallon's show last week, he had musician Alicia Cara on, and they did that skit, Wheel of Musical Impressions, where they basically have to imitate a singer singing a particular song, and Jimmy Fallon had to imitate Axl Rose singing Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo, and he basically sang the words over the instrumental track to Patience, and it's actually really good, so I've linked to that below. It's around the 3-minute mark or so, you guys can see it. Let's go on to our next piece of news. There's also some social media posts from Melissa Reese. She was hanging out with some koala bears, and it kind of reminded me of a photo I saw back in 2006 or 7. Guns played Australia, and there were some rumors going around that like Axl doesn't hang out with the rest of the band. And then sure enough, I don't remember how these photos got leaked online or whether they were put out by the Guns management or social media people, but there's a photo of Axl with a kangaroo, and there's actually a couple of photos with Axl and a kangaroo, and I think you can see Richard Fortus in the background as well, sort of dispel those myths that Axl doesn't hang out with the rest of the band. And then we got a tweet here from Del James. This is the band hanging out in Australia watching the Super Bowl yesterday. As you can see, there's Fernando, there's Dizzy Reed, and I'm not really sure who the other people are. They're probably security guards and people who work as part of the Guns N' Roses entourage. And then for you Australia fans, I saw on Rolling Stone Australia's website the Guns N' Roses Special Collector's Edition issue is now available. It came out in Canada and the US a while back. I bought a copy of it. Basically, guys, it's just a collection of all the covers that Rolling Stone has done of Guns N' Roses in the past. So there's really not a whole lot of new stuff. There's some articles pertaining to the 2016 reunion, but everything other than that is just old articles that maybe you guys have read. I'm just a huge fan, so I wanted to pick it up, and I never had the original articles. But before you buy it, you should probably know that. So you guys might have seen that photo on my video the other day of Duff wearing a One Direction shirt. People are wondering, hey, is Duff actually a One Direction fan, or was it more of a tongue-in-cheek thing? But as you can see from these photos from his wife's social media, they've met the people, at least Harry Styles from One Direction before, so they at least appear to be friends, or at least his wife appears to be friends with them, and maybe Duff is a fan of One Direction. One of my subscribers commented that one of Duff's daughters is a big fan of One Direction, so maybe that's why he was wearing a One Direction shirt. So Tommy Stinson did an interview with Esquire magazine, and in the interview he talked about Axl Rose, And he revealed something we'd previously heard before, is that Axl was not a big fan of his other band, The Replacements. So Tommy said he made a comment once that him and GNR road manager Del James might have come to one of our shows and checked us out at some point, but he wasn't quite a fan. Duff was the one that saw us play and was more of a fan of ours back then. Stinson said he wasn't a big Guns N' Roses fan back in the 80s either. He said, not really, we weren't so much into it. It actually is funny now because Axl and I got joking about it years later that neither of us was really a fan of each other's bands. And, what's funny is that if you guys watch Guns N' Roses photographic history, I think there was a gig that Guns played in 1988 or around that time where the Replacements were on the same bill as Guns N' Roses. So I kind of wonder if Axl and Tommy met back in the day. So there's a new article on the Fairmont Sentinel talking about 360-degree virtual reality. And it talks about the technology, about how one thing the music industry is looking at is enabling live streaming at concerts, but allowing it to be 360 degrees live streaming. So it's almost like you're there. And in the article, they actually mention how they've used the technology with a company called VR Live. So VR Live, they said, broadcasts began with local bands. In January, a concert with Slash and Matt Sorum, formerly of Guns N' Roses, was the first major concert to use the technology. And they said then there was a benefit with Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top and Richie Sambora of Bon Jovi. Saxton said, once we had that footage, I hit the pavement like a salesman. They also said it wasn't long before VR Live was being pursued by the industry, and Saxton was involved with VR Live full-time. He said in the music industry, we're known as the experts. We taught them how you could use and monetize it, and when people realize the value, people will pay. When they held a panel about it, they were the only three companies that were up there: CNN, Fox News, and us. So I think that this is something that could be really promising in the future. I kind of wonder how it's going to impact ticket prices and ticket sales and that kind of stuff, and how much bands will tour necessarily. But let me know your thoughts down below. Let's go into our next piece of news. We've got a little bit of an aside here. So Alice in Chains and Velvet Revolver members react to the final Black Sabbath concert. So Black Sabbath played their final show, and Dave Kushner actually tweeted out about it. As you guys know, Dave Kushner was rumored way back to be involved with the Guns N' Roses reunion, as there was rumors that they were going to use 3 guitarists. And he wrote, the first record I ever bought with my own money was Sabbath's Paranoid, changed my life forever. Thank you, Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne. So I thought that was a nice little message. And then we also got Angus Young, who joined Guns N' Roses for both of their nights in Sydney. So both nights, Guns played Riff Raff and Whole Lotta Rosie with Angus Young on stage. And then the second night in Sydney, we also had Angry Anderson from Rose Tattoo. He joined the band on stage to play Nice Boys. And also the second night that Guns played in Sydney, Slash basically went and joined Wolfmother on stage and played the song By the Sword from his 2010 solo album with Andrew Stockdale. Now, I've linked to these performances if you guys want to go check them out. Gene Simmons of Kiss was being interviewed about his long-running relationship with Paul Stanley, and he took a bit of a dig at Axl. He said, we never Axl Rose our way out of anything. So he was interviewed by Goldmine magazine, and he was asked about his relationship with Stanley, especially after Stanley had some harsh things to say about him in his book. And he said, you understand that despite it all, he talked about how, him and Paul aren't the same person, and it's important to realize that. And he said, you understand that despite it all, we both share a great work ethic. We show up on time, do the work, and we never Axl Rose our way out of anything. I think the same way a Kardashian became a 72 long time reference, I think Axl deserves that thing that could become a verb. Don't Axl your way out of this thing. I think it's appropriate. And I think the Rose dig is basically referring to, Guns N' Roses being tardy back in the day, him not showing up on time, or basically, walking off stage. So if you guys want to read the entire interview, I've linked to it down below. Let's go on to our next piece of Guns N' Roses news. So Jimmy Kimmel was interviewed in the new issue of Rolling Stone magazine, and the topic of Axl Rose actually came up. Now, if you guys remember back in 2011 or 2012, Axl did Jimmy's show. It was Axl's first television appearance in a long time. And as you guys remember, Axl was supposed to be on Jimmy Kimmel's show back in early 2016 when the Guns N' Roses reunion was just announced. He was supposed to be on there to talk about it, and then he abruptly canceled at the last minute. So Rolling Stone asked Jimmy Kimmel, you're one of the few people who's interviewed Axl Rose lately. What was that like? And Jimmy said, I actually hung out with him after the show. We went to the hotel next door and talked for a long time. He's a very engaging guy, which I would not have guessed would be the case. You have a real deep conversation with him, no matter what issues he's had with Slash and the rest of the gang. He loves them and just wants to talk about it with someone. He was telling me his side of the story. I don't want to violate his confidence, but I got the sense they would eventually get back together. And this is a common theme we've seen over and over again. Axl talking to one of the members of Thin Lizzy, Axl talking to Sebastian Bach around this time, and him showing a willingness to work things out with Slash while also publicly sort of saying the complete opposite. So I was hoping that Rolling Stone would have followed up with Jimmy Kimmel and asked him why Axl canceled his TV appearance. When Jimmy announced that Axl canceled his TV appearance, he didn't give a reason because he said he himself didn't know, but I'm kind of curious if he ever found out after the fact. So that does it for my recap of the past week's Guns N' Roses news. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We had a lot of news this week, a lot of great news. And, Guns are going to be playing until March 3rd, and then they're going to be taking a little bit of break from this leg of the tour before they finally start things up in Europe, and then make their way to my neck of the woods later on in the summer. So let me know how you guys thought this week went. Comment down below. Make sure you subscribe to my channel for all things related to Guns N' Roses. And as always, guys, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Guns N' Roses Daily. I've been teasing a lot of the upcoming Guns N' Roses True Story episodes on my Twitter account and only on my Twitter account. So you guys make sure you follow me so you can know what to expect on my channel in the coming weeks. Take care.